Hi, this is Patrick Ian Moore, Editor-in-Chief of Edibles Magazine, and today we're doing something a little different, a little bit special. It is my very sincerest pleasure to welcome our guest, Mr. Greg Sestero.
Glad to be here.
Greg, it's such an honor to have you here. It's funny, it's so cool. So for people who, not everybody who necessarily reads our magazine is totally familiar with who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna guess. So how would you describe yourself and your career in just a couple of simple sentences?
I would say it's one of the most unorthodox paths taken, really, like in the history of Hollywood. Because in 2003, I made a movie that was considered the worst movie ever made. That at the time had no chance to succeed. I mean, it was made by my very close friend Tommy Wiseau, who wasn't given a part in Hollywood for years, and he decided he was going to finance and make his own movie completely by himself. He financed it. He put a billboard up for 5 years. A lot of things that had never been done before that were looked upon as insane. And then, a few years later down the line, people started seeing it and responding to it, and it was all audience response. There was no studio behind it. So it was really this movie that was built up by the people. And then by 2010, it became kind of this international phenomenon. So I was trying to kind of do my own thing and get away from it. Or I don't even know if it wasn't even a part of my life at that time. Sure. And then it almost kind of gave me another chance. And that's when I decided to write the book. Again, and my goal with the book was to tell a story about something that was considered so bad, but have the book be turned into a great movie that would win awards. So it was this really bizarre circumstance where Tommy started out trying to make a movie so great that it would launch him, and then it ended up becoming something that was known as so bad. And then I tried to do the same thing and take something that was so bad and turn it into something that was great. And then so here we are in 2017, a movie made about the disaster artist that won a Golden Globe and got nominated for an Oscar. So it's just been something, really the path that I've had, or really describe my experience in Hollywood, which is going to be 20 years now, is really there's always a positive to be found within a negative. And I think that's what I've learned is you don't need to let one circumstance define you. There's always a way to work around it. And I think if you stay true to who you are and what your passion is and just stay focused on that, I think you can work your way out of a lot of trouble.
It's a great message. When you say the book, you mean The Disaster Artist.
Yeah.
Which was published in 2013 and released as an audiobook that you read.
Yeah, and then that's another thing that's really funny is they wanted to do an audiobook, but they didn't want me to narrate it. They wanted to get a professional narrator, and I remember saying, okay, there's nobody that knows Tommy the way I do. I'm not going to give that up. And it's if you guys want to do an audiobook, either I'm going to do it or it's not going to happen.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so
they wanted you to.
I started to get really ambitious, though. I was like, Tommy's going to play himself in the audiobook, and then I'll do my part. And then Tommy's like, that's a good idea. Let's do it. And then the publisher's like, no. So I was like, okay, I'll play Tommy. But it was just...
your portrayal of Tommy is amazing. The bit that you did just now.
It was something that I knew was very personal, and to me, it was more about connecting with an audience that's listening to the book. I wanted to tell the story, and I'm really happy that I did because, for example, you or a lot of people around the world have come up to me and said, you kept me company, on a long road trip for 12 hours, and I feel like that's a great way to connect with a reader.
I mean, not only the portrayal of your mom, but also Tommy, who are both some accent-heavy characters to be doing yourself. Yeah. Through the audiobook of The Disaster Artist, you really I feel like a lot of people got to see a side of you as an actor that they...
Yeah, I really enjoyed the voice acting because you don't have to think about camera or what you look like, and you can just really kind of bring these characters to life in a different way. I really enjoyed it.
And your first big Hollywood movie was Patch Adams?
Well, I mean, I was an extra, but I was there. I was in it for 6 seconds. That was really my first real Hollywood experience. I got to hang out on set with Robin Williams and Philip Seymour Hoffman. And I thought Philip Seymour Hoffman at the time was an extra as well. So I went up to him and because I had just done a take and the director said I did a really good job, so I was feeling excited, and I saw him there and I was like trying to make conversation with him. I was like, how did you get involved with this? And he just kind of gave me one look, looked away and walked away. I was like, guy kind of takes himself seriously to be an extra. And then a few years later, it was like Boogie Nights, Big Lebowski, Magnolia. I was like, oh, okay, that guy wasn't an extra. Come on, that's...
Now, how did you feel about Dave Franco's portrayal of you?
I really like Dave. Is such a great guy. I mean, he's just... it's weird because as I got to know James, I really connected to James in a different way, and then I got to know Dave. It was like I felt like Dave and I were really close, and James actually had some. He connected to Tommy in a way, and so it was their relationship. I mean, James is obviously, he's not Tommy, but he can understand Tommy, sure. And so I think the dynamic was great. Dave really got it. He's just like, hey, I wanted to become an actor too, and I come to LA and I do these movies that I think are going to go somewhere, and they're just really bad, and so he really kind of got it. And I thought he was just really easy to talk to, and I love that he didn't really know the room when he got on board. He's like, he watched it alone. He said in the hotel room, he's like, my brother wants to make a movie about this thing. So Dave was
That's
great.
Funny. I remember before he was really doing. James Franco used to do these acting tutorials on Fuck
Yeah,
or
they
Die.
did a video together, and I think that's where he knew the dynamic would really work.
Where people had to. I think to be a great actor, you have to cry on film.
Yeah, he gave these like
every
really
single
bad
movie
acting
he'd
lessons.
ever been in, he had cried.
Yeah. I thought those videos were a great step for them to work together.
And then you were in a Puppet Master movie?
The very first thing I did, I booked it like maybe a mile away from here on Vine Street.
Yeah.
My fourth audition in LA. It was like 500, 600 actors. It was right before Christmas time, so everybody was trying to get into this movie. And I got it because I could do a French accent.
Right.
So I thought. People came up to me later and they're like, nice German accent. I was like, oh. All right. But yeah, we shot in Romania. And again, first speaking role, you think like, man, this is going to be huge. And then you watch it and it's like little by little you realize, okay, back to the drawing board. But it was a great experience. And there's a lot of very passionate Puppet Master fans that still come up around the world that still love to talk about it.
That's cool. The new movie that we're really here to talk about, most people are going to look at the title and the way the title's spelled and wonder how to pronounce it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's F with the R in the parentheses, and then so it looks like it could be Fiends.
Mm-hmm. It was just like I started the top of the page, which can be the most intimidating thing to look at, where you have an empty page, and I just wrote that title, and I love Werner Herzog, and one of his great documentaries was called My Best Fiend, in which he...
I mentioned this earlier today.
Yeah, and so...
I didn't know that you were a big fan. But I was saying that you guys are dynamic.
Yeah, and so I just kind of wrote that title with no investment, not much thought, and I just kind of put it and started writing it. And
so for people who don't know, it's Klaus Kinski and Werner Herzog's had a
My Best Fiend
contentious relationship as director-actor. Now, do you and Tommy see yourselves in them?
I think how different we are and how different our personalities are and how they mesh together in a way that I think works in kind of a chaotic way, and I think that's what they share as well.
And the new movie, what initially led to this interview, I read online that you were on edibles when you first had the idea, the inspiration for this new project.
Yeah, I was kind of a newcomer to edibles just a few years ago. I was going through a very stressful time, and so I tried a THC edible, and I started laughing at everything. I mean, it was just it was an unbelievable experience. I saw things differently. It was exactly what I needed. And then I tried a sativa edible. And that's when things started to get weird. I think I took a little too much. It was on the night of the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And so I'm watching the Super Bowl, and and I start eating everything. I started eating all these Skittles, and for some reason, Skittles, when you've had an edible, are the greatest thing ever. And then it got really strange. I stood up to watch the game and stood close to the TV, and I was watching the game, and I guess my girlfriend was watching me. She's like, "What are you doing?" I stood up and watched the entire game, just standing in front of the TV, and I started to kind of watch the game. And it was the Super Bowl with the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay, yeah, I remember. In
2015. And the Seahawks were jumping up ahead. They were up 10. It was in like the third quarter, and it looked like the Seahawks were going to kind of pull away. And as I started watching, I started getting these like visions of like what was going to happen in the game. And I could see it. I could predict what was going to happen. I knew what the score was going to be. And I was like,
oh, wow.
New England's going to win 28-24. And I was like, I already knew the outcome, and it was like watching it happen. It was so strange. And then like I sat down when the game was over, and I kept looking for the game. Like I was still searching for it. It was like such a bizarre night. But so I took a break for a little bit, and then I did a sativa edible again, and I was watching Breaking Bad, and took me 2 hours to eat dinner. I really enjoyed each bite, and then I was watching The Jinx on my laptop. Going back and forth between the two, and I started to get really creative, and what I noticed was all the judgment that I would have when I was working on or writing something went out the window. Because a lot of times when I would write something, you get halfway and you think, well, who's going to want to see this?
Sure.
Like, why does this story matter? Like, if this character gets to this point, why doesn't he just go to the police? The story's over. You start to just think through your story so much, and you start to really judge it. And that's why a lot of things never get done, is you just start to not believe in what you're doing. And on that night, I think so many things came to me, all these movies that I loved, all these pieces, and like the friendship I had with Tommy. And like I started to think about this road trip we took, years ago when you thought I was going to try to kill him. And I just kind of jumped into that and started writing. And it just like, I don't know, it just worked. Like the story, I stopped trying to think like of an outline and having things make sense, and just went for it. And once I got the ball rolling and I went for it, it just flowed. And it was something that I had fun experiencing the story as it was coming. I didn't try to overanalyze it, and it put me in the right zone to where I was able to get through the story, feel it, see it, and then get to an ending that I really believed in. And it was like a while where I couldn't get to that point. And then when I finished it, I was like, I really believe in this. I want to make it. So something about like the looseness of, and there's a lot of like a lot of people kind of refer to like it as a David Lynch kind of film.
Sure.
And like the vibe is very surreal. And like, I haven't really watched many David Lynch films, so it's not like he was an influence on me. I saw Mulholland Drive years ago, but
right.
I never really studied Lynch. So it's just interesting that the story kind of takes that turn, but it pulled me out of being in my head and allowed me just to kind of let it flow.
Do you remember what the edibles were?
It was like a chocolate, like sativa chewable or something.
Cool.
It was like a Chiba or something, I think it was.
A Chiba Chew?
Chiba Chew.
Chiba Chew, wow. Yeah, they're still around. They're good. Now, there's a scene in The Room. There's only one character in The Room who's ever seen consuming cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you. It's Mark. Mm-hmm. It's on the roof top area. And it's I guess people who've seen The Disaster Artist know that this was on a green screen.
Yeah, not that far from here, up Highland Avenue.
I lived while that poster was up, while the billboard was up, I lived in that neighborhood. I walked past it to work every single day at the time. And I thought that he was like a local magician.
That would make sense.
That was performing.
Like a Lance Burton in Vegas.
Yeah, I didn't really get that it was even
he should have
a movie. And if you had tried to tell me at the time, if somebody was like, no, man, it's playing right over there, I would have been there in like 10 minutes watching it. But
you need to put the billboard back up.
That'd be great. Mark smokes a little bit of pot in the room.
Mm-hmm. But then he gets really mad.
Right.
I didn't experience that after.
Had you, at that point in your life, how much weed had you smoked? None at all. When was the first time you ever tried anything?
I had a brownie, and it was interesting. I got extremely paranoid the first time I had it.
Really?
Where I felt like I was kind of like falling back, and I was like very much clinging to the couch. And
was it homemade by somebody?
I think I had too much.
Oh yeah, it happened.
But after that, I kind of started to. When I did it right, I realized I've never slept better than when.
So do you use more edibles than smoking?
Or... Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
Because they did tell me that sativa is a creative edible, and so it definitely, again, because the Jinx is something that I brought up because I tried to watch it when I was on HBO, and I didn't really find it that fascinating. But when I watched it that night on my laptop, after having a sativa, I watched the whole thing all the way through. It like came alive to me in a way that I wasn't able to process before.
And the Jinx is about what's his
Robert
name?
Durst.
Robert Durst. Yeah. That was a documentary on HBO.
Yeah, HBO, yeah.
They did a lot of funny Saturday Night Live stuff about it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how I saw the poster for the Jinx, or the billboard for that.
Okay.
That was another one. If you didn't know what it was about, you would have never.
Yeah.
And it was such a close up on his face; it almost looked like a caveman or something. It was so weird.
It's a fascinating one for sure.
Now, the other strange thing about The Room, for a lot of people, I've heard you referred to as the best actor in the worst movie ever made.
I mean, that's a compliment.
But as far as bad movies go, I mean, especially movies that are kind of considered so bad that they're good, and almost all of them, you can watch them and be like, well, that's a genuinely talented person, probably trapped a bit by circumstance. And is there anything other than Tommy that contributed to it being so?
Tommy really is what makes the movie a force. I mean, if not, it's just kind of a Lifetime movie, you know?
Right. It's hard to picture without him.
He's just got, I mean, there's just, whether someone's a bad actor, good actor, like, he's got screen presence. And I think everything about him is just trying to decipher what's he doing. And I think, you know, good actor, bad actor, that's something that's valuable that not a lot of people have. So I think that's what makes The Room so watchable after all these years.
How different was it to work with them on Best Friends?
It was a totally different experience. I think I learned a lot. He was a lot more comfortable with himself at this point, and he just wanted a shot to just do something else. And we took him seriously. He took it seriously, and it wasn't about trying to kind of laugh at him or create an environment that will laugh at him. We really tried to do him justice, the director, and I really took it seriously and looked out for him. And
I mean, he's cast well in Best Friends.
I think that's what I've learned with making this movie is the casting is a huge part. It's like 90% of your film. You know, there's a few actors that came in that I knew that just jumped into the part. And it's like they're just playing a version of themselves. It's so much easier to get something watchable out of them.
We met Tommy because we had a booth right across from him at the Los Angeles Comic Con.
Okay,
it was kind of like the Room, Tommy Wiseau area, and then the Edibles magazine. And we were the first cannabis company to have one at a major Comic Con or anything, which was a pretty big deal. We didn't see you there though.
No, I wasn't there.
Do you ever do the comic book convention?
I haven't done many cons. No, I usually do screenings and signings in theaters and stuff. How
much of your time does that take up?
I mean, with the book, I did a lot of book signings, and with this movie, I've been doing a lot of traveling as well. So it's been a lot, especially over the last year with the Disaster Artist and all that.
Right. Are you recognized on the street much now?
Yeah, since the Disaster Artist, it's happened a lot more. I think it's brought a lot of attention to it. A lot of people are more familiar with it.
Have you ever gotten high with Tommy Wiseau?
I have not.
Does he?
I feel like he's already got a sense of highness to him anyway. Yeah. Because he says "oh hi" every time. No, I think he's just. You don't really need anything with him. He's just so alive, you know.
Now, you know, it's funny. Before this was ever even set up, her brother's B. LeGrand. Her brother's name is Mark. And every time I see him, I say, "Oh, hi, Mark." And then I say, "Oh, bye, Mark." And I mean, it's I guess if you don't if you don't know me and what I am normally talking like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But I've quoted that line now with him probably more than so many. The Room, my friends and I always found it very quotable, almost like a language of its own.
Absolutely.
So many of the best are your lines, though. I mean, so many of the ones that you can apply to real
the quotable lines. Yeah. I'd say the one I always go with is people are very strange these days. That's the one I think is just goes a long way.
What are you talking about? I just saw you.
That's the other one that I didn't know that there was comedy there until I watched it with an audience. I was like, oh,
now
first line that makes sense.
I'm trying to. Is there anything that you really think people need to know that wasn't, if they just are not gonna read the book and they're not gonna listen to the book? Is there anything important to you that was left out of the movie that you'd like people to know?
I think the movie did a great job of capturing the spirit of the book.
Mm-hmm.
I think what was most important for me when I wrote the book was that you could pick it up and get lost in the story and know nothing about movies or Hollywood or The Room. Because I think a good story should be able to stand alone. I think they did a really good job with the movie. They told a story that's universal and that is relatable, and I think that was the most important thing.
Very cool. What do you think is next for you after Best Friends? Are you writing anything or working on anything?
So I'm getting these two done, Best Friends Volume 1, Volume 2, which should happen hopefully relatively soon. Best Friends Volume 2 will premiere in September. And then the next thing I want to do is write a horror film.
Do you already have a story with that?
I've got a few ideas. I think once we wrap part 1 and part 2, I can really dive in. Because
when you see the Best Friends trailer, it's set up almost like a horror movie.
Yeah, I think it's starting to go there now. It's about going even further down.
So are you staying in that universe, or?
So it could be another film, another spin-off, or it could be just its own thing.
Now, what are your personal feelings about cannabis legalization?
I mean, I think it helps people, and I think as long as you're smart about it and do it for the right reasons, and I mean, I think it's beneficial. I think.
If you need it now, have you been to any stores yourself?
I haven't recently, but I know it's helped a ton of people in a lot of different ways, and I think just be responsible about it. Sure. I think it's very, very helpful. Now,
Seth Rogen, he worked on the Disaster Artist quite a bit.
Talk about somebody who uses it in a great way. I mean, he's always in a great mood. His movies are great. People respond to him, and I think again, it's something that it puts you in a great mindset if you use it to as positive.
How did you first meet Tommy? What was the first thing that?
It was in a place a lot like this. It was kind of a theater. He was in acting class in San Francisco, and it's 20 years ago. Next month, he went up on stage and started acting and performing this sonnet, and it was just something about it was so unlike anything I'd ever seen. And it was like this guy who was just, I was like, what the fuck is this? And so it was just different, and I was so tired of being in all these acting classes and feeling bored, and something about him was electrifying in a way, and I wanted to do a scene with him, and that's kind of how it started.
Do you prefer more acting, writing, or modeling?
I'm going to say writing.
And why?
Because writing, you get to create the world. I think as an actor, you kind of, it puts you in a different mindset where you're, at least for me, you're a little bit more in your head, and you're a little bit more aware of like yourself and how you're coming off. With writing, you're just living through these situations and these people, and you almost, when I wrote Best Friends, I almost become very like protective of the characters, like of the people that are brought in to play these characters. Like there's a really deep bond I have for them, even if I've spent very little time around them. It's just this kind of beautiful connection that I feel like I get as an actor. I haven't found the right place yet where I'm really myself, and I think I found that with writing. So therefore, it's just more fun.
And do you ever get sick of getting asked questions about Tommy Wiseau?
No, I mean, I think it's the thing that got everything started, and I think you need to be grateful for that. And I think I was fascinated with Tommy when I first met him, and I've had this 20-year journey with him. I'm sure everybody else is very fascinated as well. So if I could be a translator of sorts and help us all out, I think it's great, and I think people enjoy the room and they enjoy these movies and they enjoy us working together, and in this town, that's all you can really ask for. So I think I'm open to answering whatever people want.
If you look at you and James Franco, you got almost the same age, like months apart, and right at first we're on a pretty similar path, like in
we auditioned for I think the same part or something at one point,
And then he was sort of discovered by Judd Apatow around the time you and Tommy discovered each other.
He did Freaks and Geeks, I think, while I was living in LA, and around the same time,
So you guys auditioned for. Do you remember what the same thing was?
It was Puppet Master, Retro Puppet Master.
Really?
He owes me for getting that one.
So you beat James Franco out for the role in Retro Puppet Master.
I mean, that's if you want to consider it beating out.
That's what I want to consider it.
If it was Spider-Man, then I'd be like, let's talk about that. But this one is more of almost a blessing for him, and
Where was Tommy born?
I guess Transylvania. I don't know.
I heard that somebody updated his IMDb page.
I heard that nobody knows except Tommy. Is that true?
I think it's best not to know. I mean, the mystery is what's so interesting here. So,
did he really make his money with clothing?
I think he did at this point. Innocent until proven guilty. That's what he said, and it's been 20 years, and there's been no conflicting evidence that it wasn't. So the guy knows how to sell clothes.
One of the weirdest things in the room, when you say the wine, the music, and the sexy dress, but the music you're referring to is like the score. The audience.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of. It was a movie where I showed up and did what I was told.
That's one of the strangest. When I watched, almost everything. That was one of the first things where I thought, what?
Yeah.
What?
Well, I mean, for me, it was when he brought the flowers and said, "Hi, babe." That's where I knew that there was magic in this movie.
That doggy in the flower shop scene too was so good. And if you watched The Room super high,
I haven't. No.
You should. That's so funny. You really should.
I might take you up on that. What someone said after watching, it was one of the great compliments. After watching Best Friends Volume 2 the other night, they said, "I feel like I'm high and I'm drunk and I haven't had anything."
Oh, that's awesome.
And I thought that was like the edible coming through on the page onto the screen. Like it transcended and affected the audience. So
we're rewatching it tonight.
Yeah, I think you're watching part 1. Part 2 is it goes even wackier. So
where will the viewers be able to watch the movie?
There'll be a home release in September.
Did it bother you at all that you were played by someone who wasn't tall?
No, I thought it was. Yeah, I thought the dynamic between them worked, and I mean, I don't think height as much in this film mattered.
And your mom, you mentioned, wasn't bothered by.
No, I think she was happy. I think Megan Mullally is pretty great.
Greg Sestero, he's going to be on the cover of the September issue of Edibles magazine. It's going to be our Hollywood issue. It should be a great looking cover because he's a professional model. Is there anything that you want to tell the viewers before we end?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I experience on an edible is that there's not really any limits. And I think a lot of times we go through life judging ourselves or thinking we can't do certain things or aren't allowed to do certain things. And I think for me, trying to create something, creative freedom is one of the most important things because you're doing something because you love it. And I think it put me in touch with that just to do something because you love it and don't judge yourself and most importantly have fun while you're doing it. And I think it helped remove those kind of barriers of judgment and all that. So it's all about being in a healthy mindset, and I think edibles can really help you in that regard. Would you mind reading that in your best Tommy Wiseau?
Okay, so look, I have a little statement for you today. Truth is not obliged to stick to the possibilities. Ha ha ha.
Greg, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
This has really been my favorite interview that I've done. Everybody, as always, tip your delivery driver. Smile at your bud always know your dose. Don't over-medicate. Have fun and, stay high and enjoy life. This has been Patrick Ian Moore with Edibles Magazine and Greg Sestero of Best Friends, The Disaster Artist, and The Room.